name is Mary Hilding, and I am from El Paso, Illinois, which is in the middle of the state. And I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a United Methodist pastor, so growing up as a pastor's kid was fantastic. And I'm one of 10. I have 7 biological siblings and 2 step. When I was 14, my dad passed away all of a sudden, and it really left me without just hope and a future. And so I ended up becoming pretty bad with my siblings and my mom. I didn't like my mom. She was a disciplinarian of me, while my dad disciplined everyone else. And so I basically, when I was 18, I left and did Youth with a Mission. And while I was in Youth with a Mission, my mom basically wanted me to do that because she had seen my sister go through it and had seen it change her life. And so she really wanted me to do it. And so I wasn't ever planning on going to college. And so YWAM was basically a good getaway. And so I did YWAM for 3.5 years, was based in Nashville, Tennessee, Elm Springs, Arkansas, and Lakeside, Montana. And so after the 3.5 years was done, I ended up going to college and started playing rugby for the college team. And that was basically when I started seeing women differently. I started feeling attracted to them. And but I really hit it because growing up, that was one thing that homosexuality and in the Mormon church, we were taught that both were not good. So I went to a school down in Cleveland, Tennessee, and for 1.5 years, and then transferred to a school up in Southern Illinois. And I ended up finding a rugby team in St. Louis and joined it. Half the team were lesbians, and so I really felt like I'd found my place. And so we were on a tournament one weekend in Arkansas and overdosed on medicine. And because I was just to the point where I was very lost and knew that I had grown up that way. And so when we got back to St. Louis, I ended up checking myself into a psych ward, was there for a week. And while I was there, I basically said, you know what, I don't care what my friends and family think. I'm gonna come out and let them know who I am. And so I ended up coming out, and half my family were okay with it. The other half, my mom, my older sister, were not very very nice about it. And so so I basically, it sort of put a rift in between my family and I. And so I lived that lifestyle for 6 years. Ended up, during that time, now I look back at it, and it was definitely God saving me from a lot, but I didn't have very good relationships. And so I dated this girl for 3 years, had a union ceremony with her, found out 6 months into it that she only wanted to be with me because I would pay all her bills. And so, but I wanted to be loved. And so, she seemed like she loved me. And so we ended up getting a union ceremony, and was with her for 3 years. While I was with her, we took many trips to Nauvoo, Illinois, and which is a huge Mormon settlement. And so met some amazing Mormon missionaries. And I said if I ever left the gay lifestyle, I would want to join the Mormon church, because I was really hurt by I was really hurt by Christians when I was in that lifestyle, that I didn't want to go back to Christianity. So I was seeing my counselor I saw on and off for 7 years, and she said, I don't believe that you were born gay. She said, stuff happens to people from birth to age 3 that causes them to grow up believing that they're that way. And she said, but for you, losing your dad at, such a primitive age, and just moving to El Paso 4 months prior, not having a positive male role model in my life, that she said, I really think that that's why you're in that lifestyle. And so I really thought about it, and the next fight my wife and I had, I basically said, you know what, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And so I left, jumped immediately into the Mormon church, joined the Mormon church 3 months after I left the gay lifestyle. And a month after I joined the Mormon church, I was up at my sister's watching my niece and nephew, and just really felt something in my spirit say that while you were in the gay lifestyle, it wasn't your friends that turned their back against you, it was you turning your back against your friends. And I really felt like God said, you need to make amends with everyone that you hurt. So one by one, he brought to mind names of people that I needed to ask for forgiveness for. At the end, I ended up counting like 40 people that I had to make amends to. Very humbling, and I never want to do that again. And so I basically jumped headfirst into Mormonism, and just really got a calling, and was paying my tithes and doing baptisms for the dead, and just really, really, really enjoying being a part of a community, and that I didn't feel like I could be a part of in the Christian community. And so I ended up moving back with my mom and stepdad, and joined a church there. Met a guy, and 2 months later we ended up coming out to Salt Lake for a trip, and he's a Mormon. Ended up proposing to me out here, and so we continued on with our trip, and then we stopped in Colorado and visited a Youth with a Mission friend of mine, and she gave me the 3rd degree of becoming a part of the Mormon church, and she really just challenged me to research what the Book of Mormon said, what the Bible said about it. And so I just really thought about what she was saying, and so we came home from Utah, and I basically said, you know what, Mom, because I was frustrated with everyone not accepting who I was, and so I left the Mormon church. My heart was still in it, but physically I was not. And so I called my fiance at the time, and I said, I'm leaving the Mormon church. You can stay or go, but if you stay, we're not getting married. And so he ended up leaving. We looked around to different churches for quite a while, and just couldn't find anything that really had community. And so then in 2012, April 2012, we got married, and thinking that everything was good until probably a month into it, I started seeing changes in him, and about four and a half months into the marriage, he came to me and said, the only reason why I married you was because I thought you'd be the submissive wife and go back to the Mormon church with me after you're married. And so to me, I really had a lot of bitterness towards the Mormon people for a long time, and then just realized that it wasn't necessarily the Mormon people. Everyone has their own free will, and so I basically, I started talking to Mormon people again, and so then he ended up leaving 2 weeks after he said that, moving out to Salt Lake in November, filing for divorce out here, and then moved back to Illinois in February of 2013, and then the divorce was final in May of 2013. So after that, I just like still tried searching and actually ended up a couple months later ended up starting to go to a Catholic church. And because I really just wanted to be involved in a community, and so I thought Catholicism was great, and so ended up doing that, getting involved with Catholicism, and basically just realized that wasn't where I wanted to be. So last August, we had a band that came to El Paso called Adams Road, and they had a book called Unveiling Grace that Lynn Wilder wrote. And so I read it and ended up contacting Lynn, and we had been in contact for a good 4 or 5 months, and then she said, you know what, Mary, you're living a double-minded life. Like, you have one foot in Christianity, one foot in Mormonism. You can't have it both ways. Like, you either have to be 100% in Mormonism or 100% in Christianity. And so I was like, well, I feel more comfortable in the Mormon church, so, I'm done. And so I stopped talking with Lynn for probably 4 or 5 months. And looking back at it now, I know it was God, but then I didn't really. Just like a small voice inside of me just said, you need to contact Lynn. And so I contacted her, and I said, Lynn, I'm supposed to contact you. I don't know why. And she said, I'm going to be in Indianapolis, which is 2.5, 3 hours from where I'm at. She said, I'm going to be in Indianapolis in May. I want you to see if you can come over and see Mike and I. And so I said, I'll definitely come over. And so on my way over there were two things going through my mind. Like, I was trying to come up with questions that I could stump them with. And then the other thing was, I was to the point where I did not care about life anymore, and that I needed peace. Like, I hadn't had peace since my dad died, and so I just needed to figure out where I belonged. And so I went over there and went to their session that they had, and stayed several hours asking them questions, and they were answering them. And so then the next day, I stayed with Lynn's sister's family, who are very devout Christians. So the next day, I went with them to church, and the pastor spoke about grace and grace alone. And so to me, I was like, okay, that's a good start. That's a sign from God. And throughout the rest of the day, I really prayed. I read my Bible, and then I went and heard Lynn and Mike speak at another church, and it was like scales just completely fell from my eyes, and I was able to really see God, and just really see the differences between Mormonism and Christianity. Because at this time, I really didn't know that there were, that there was much of a difference. And so later on that night, I'm a percussionist, and so that family is very musically gifted. And so we were sitting around just singing songs, and halfway through it, the husband was like, are you ready to completely leave Mormonism behind and just follow wholeheartedly after God? And I said yes. And so for the first time since my dad died, so this has been almost 19 years, I have felt peace. And it's a really good feeling. And so then, and I felt just completely like 15 pounds just off my shoulders. And so, I tell Lynn this. Well, on my way home, I'm really thinking and praying and, just asking God if I'm to share my story, let that happen. And 3 days later, I get a phone call from Lynn asking me, she says, so I'm going to be in Nauvoo, Illinois, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to come over and share your story. And so, so they had four venues that they spoke at, and I ended up speaking at 3 of them. And the last one that the second to last one they spoke at, I ended up getting baptized. Mike Wilder ended up baptizing me, and which was the first time that he had baptized since leaving the Mormon church. So, so it was just a really good feeling, and now like God is just so much a part of my life, and like I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I wouldn't like trade my past for the world, because I feel like I'm able to help so many people that are struggling with homosexuality, or who has lost their parent, or who struggle with Mormonism and Christianity. Like I just feel like that there's a place for me now that I didn't feel before. So I definitely just want to encourage everyone to just continue to read your Bible, and like God, you may not hear God in an audible voice, but He's there, and like He speaks through different ways. So.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious how you got through 3.5 years at YM without becoming committed.
So, yes.
You were young, of course. That was part of it. Probably.
Yeah, I was definitely young. I left 17, so I graduated high school. My birthday's in February, so graduated high school in December. Started YWAM in January, and like it's easy in a way, I think, to play Christian.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what I did, and like I knew what people wanted to hear, and so that's
people pleaser, huh?
Yeah, I'm definitely a people pleaser. I'm working on that. Yes.
Thanks. That's good.
What is YWAM? Is it YWAM?
Yeah, YWAM is Youth with a Mission, and it's a mission organization that was founded in, I think, 1962 by a guy named Warren Cunningham, and he had a vision of waves of young people coming and sharing the gospel with it, like with from one end of the earth to the
all
other.
Over the world,
yeah. And the first one I think started in Hawaii or Switzerland or something, but now they're all over the United States, all over the world. So
they have a ship too.
They do have a ship. They have Mercy ship. Yep.
The Anastasis, right?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know they were. That was theirs then.
Yeah.
Yep.
They go around the world in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever leave the States?
I did. I went to Mexico. I actually went to Mexico when I was 16 and 17. No, 15 and 16. 2 summers in a row. And I was a hellion. I put them through a lot. But I went a year after my dad died, and so so I didn't really know any better. And I did go to Canada a couple times, and Romania and Hungary.
Oh.
Hungary was just sort of a stop, because we had a layover for 5 or 6 hours, and so then went over to Romania for 5 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So, which was the hardest outreach. I was 19, and was the hardest outreach that I'd ever done. I was actually left in Romania for 4 days by myself.
Oh no.
And then had to get stitches. So experience a Romanian hospital.
Did you have an accident?
It was one of our last days. Well, I thought it was going to be my last day, but I ended up staying 4 days later. And but it was one of our last days in Timișoara, which is where we did our ministry at. And I had gone and to get pictures developed, had somebody with me. We were walking through our door. We had all our windows open, and at that time, the breeze just like came into the apartment, and so I saw the glass door rapidly shutting. So I went and reached for it, and as soon as I reached for it, glass shattered and it cut my arm, and
Ouch.
Man,
yeah, so
wow.
yeah.
So why did you decide to go to Nauvoo the first time? What was it that drew you there?
I think because my girlfriend at the time told me that it was history. I love history, and so like the first time I felt like I was in another world being there, because you know you have the flats, which is where all the history is, and then you have like the main street Nauvoo, and so that's what really drew me to it. And then meeting missionaries, and you know, it just really I just really fell in love with it. And actually, I forgot to tell you this, but I'm actually a Nauvoo pageant convert. I had gone to Nauvoo so many times, went to the pageant so many times that I basically, you know, that's where because when I had left the gay relationship, I had been to Nauvoo probably 3 years up to this point, so every summer, and we went to probably 6 to 8 of the same pageant. So I really enjoyed the music, I enjoyed the pageant, and so I basically said, hey, what the heck. So
Where did the Wilders, where would they teach at Nauvoo? Are there Christian churches there?
there are Christian churches. There's a
Okay.
Baptist church
Okay.
that they spoke in, and then there's a church it's actually not Nauvoo, but it's probably 20 minutes away. And then there's a church, they actually had like and then they went to Keokuk, Iowa. There's a church there that had sort of like a workshop of how to minister to Mormons in the morning. And then in the evening, they had like a French dinner that they were guests at and they spoke at.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
You ever see the movie Michael?
I have not.
You know what it is though, right?
John Travolta.
No.
No.
No, Michael, it was at the Sundance Film Festival, we saw it. What was that, the actor that was
I
in?
have no idea, I can't remember.
John Travolta?
No, it's the same actor that was stuck down in the canyon and had to cut off his hand.
Oh,
James Franco.
yeah, James.
James Franco played Michael, who was a gay activist. I mean, he was really into it, and he met Christ.
Wow, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a story of him coming out and becoming actually a pastor, Christian pastor in Wyoming, of all places.
Wow.
A little
Yeah.
burg north of Cheyenne. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's a
awesome.
great story. Although I never found out if he stayed there, or I heard a rumor once that he had left Christianity, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, it was, you know, yeah.
So why didn't you feel like you could have community in your own faith tradition then? Well, I mean, you made such a point of community in the Mormon church, but why didn't you say, hey, maybe I
Well,
look
I
in my own?
just didn't, you know, like going to, I mean, I tried some churches out and I didn't, maybe it's because I wasn't a Christian, and so, you know, like I was just looking at what the community was like in the Mormon church, and so I had such a high standard of it that, you know, it was hard. But now, I actually had a friend who was looking, this was like probably a couple days after leaving Indiana. She's from Indianapolis, and she was looking online for churches in my area for me. Came across a church. They meet in a high school, which is super cool, and called Charis Community Church. And so Charis in Greek means grace. And so I was like, okay, that's, you know, like that's definitely a church that I'm going to try out, and maybe it's from the Lord, you know, that I go to it. And so I started going to it. So much community, like, I mean, so much like Mormonism in the community. That's it. That's the only thing
That part you still valued, yeah.
So
Can you tell us about how you got involved with CR and what CR is?
So CR is it's called Celebrate Recovery. It's a 12-step
Oh, okay.
program, and it's similar to Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's with God, with Jesus. And
Yes.
so when I left the Mormon church the first time after being involved for 8 months, I basically found, I started becoming friends with a couple people that went to CR, and so I started going, and I really didn't go for the Mormon, being, because CR, you can go for anything.
Sure.
You can be,
Any addiction.
yeah, any addiction.
Hurts, habits, and hang-ups.
Yep. And so I went, because I was struggling with same-sex attraction still, even though I was out of it, and I was involved with Celebrate Recovery for 2.5 years, went and, became a leader in it, and actually started a sexual integrity group for women.
Good.
And I would still probably be a part of CR if it wasn't for my job. I work second shift, and so it's really hard to go to CR when you're working. So, yeah.
Did you end up getting your name removed from the LDS Church?
I did.
And can you tell us about that?
The first time, I ended up writing a letter, sending it to Salt Lake, right after leaving, probably a week or two after leaving the first time. And so I wrote a letter, sent it to Salt Lake. They sent me one back saying that I had to meet with my stake president and my bishop. So I made a time to meet up with them, and they asked me, why do you want to get your name removed? And and I said, well, I don't necessarily believe that the Mormon Church is true. And so they're like, okay. So they ended up removing my name. Well, then when I started going back to Mormon Church in January, I had, my bishop was looking for my membership name. Once he found my membership name, it would have taken a whole year to become an active member again. And so between that and coming in contact with the Wilders and Adams Road, I basically, said, no church, if a church is true, then why are they making me wait a year to join it again? Like, it just didn't make sense. Like, God forgives and God forgets. And so, yeah. And so I basically ended up getting it removed and never got it back.
Have you ever heard of a book called Toxic Faith?
Mm-mm.
There is such a thing as a religious addiction. You know that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that. Well, I'm a retired clinical counselor, marriage and family therapy. So it's one of the books that I read, and that because I met a lot of people who are struggling with faith. Some coming out of Mormonism, some in various stages of maybe lukewarm Christianity or something like that. But yeah, it's an interesting book, and I thought of that when I thought of your CR.
And I tell people, especially Mormons, active and like ex-Mormons, for me, it's not about a religion, it's about a relationship.
That's right.
And so, but I've had a lot of Mormons say, well, I beg to differ. Like, that's,
Sure.
You need a religion. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, just a relationship. It's...
With the relationship, you'll want a fellowship with other believers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, can you share some specific problems that Lynn and Michael and maybe Adams Road shared with you that got you thinking, man, Mormonism is really messed up?
Well, we were talking about, one, and I still struggle with it, but I don't have to understand everything about Christianity, but the Trinity. And when I like I came to the point where, and this was before I completely came to Christ. Like I was talking to Mormon missionaries, and they were telling me about, 3 separate beings, and I was like, okay, that's something that I could believe in. Like the Trinity just seems too confusing, and so, but then once Lynn and Mike explained that, God had a father who had a father who had a father, like I was just like, God didn't, he's just God. Like that's all it is. Yeah. And so, so that was one, and baptisms for the dead was another one, because I really enjoyed doing baptisms, but once I started thinking and just questioning that with the Wilders, and I was just like, that's just a different concept. Like, why are you baptizing somebody who's already dead? Or, why are you baptizing somebody on behalf of somebody who's already dead? Like, it just...
Well, did you think that they could get a second chance in the afterlife to?
I did it first, and then now there's people that are ministering everywhere, and so, if somebody doesn't hear the gospel, to me, like, I don't want to put blame on anybody, but it's
Like there's
your
no,
own fault.
like it's,
almost.
there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are missionaries everywhere.
You guys have any other questions?
What part of history do you especially love? You said you love history.
I do. I like the 1800s. I went to
That's interesting. I love that century too.
I went to a college in Southern Illinois called McKendree University, which is the oldest college in Illinois, which was founded in 1928. So it just from that point on, just watching Little House on the Prairie. I love that show, and
You mean 1828?
1828, not 1928, 1828, thank you.
19th century.
And so, and we actually went to Laura Ingalls Wilder's house in Missouri, and that to me, seeing, somebody's house that, from the 1800s, it's just really fascinating to me.
So you think that could explain some of your fascination with Mormonism then?
Probably.
It came out of the 19th century too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. And now I'm really liking the Mountain Meadow Massacre, doing research on that and reading a book, and it's just really interesting just to see how somebody could kill innocent men, women, and children.
Are you on that website on Facebook, MMM?
Mm-mm.
There's a site now. Yeah. It's interesting.
Did they come out with some new findings or something? They were
Just-
touting that on the TV or on the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, more people buried.
Buried in
Yeah, that
different
was
places,
kids. Yeah,
on
additional
private
graves, yeah.
property. I'm curious, did you say you were reading a book about it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it by Juanita Brooks?
Yes, I
Okay,
think so.
she's supposed to be the most accurate, and it's supposed to be the most, precise book on Mountain Meadow Massacre.
And they have a movie out, which I right now can't think of the name of it, but
September Dawn.
yes, September Dawn.
John Boyd.
John Boyd. Yeah.
September 11th.
Have
September
you read
12th.
Will Bagley's Blood of the Prophets?
Mm-mm.
That's a
That
good.
too.
That's
Okay.
really good on Mountain Meadow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You need to get a website out and just mark all those books you're talking about.
Oh,
Call it Jerry's recommendation, like all over us. So you can, yeah.
well, the church doesn't own that property anymore. It's on the National Historic Register now. Mountain Meadows is, yeah, it's a federal, part of the National Park Service, I think, yeah. I thought someday they might actually build a visitor center down there.
I don't think so.
Then they'd have to put too many anti-Mormon books in there, right?
I'd like to bury that info.
Yeah, really. The federal government might want to, be sensitive to the Mormons in southern Utah.
Any other questions?
Where are you living now? You probably said.
I live with my mom and stepdad right now.
Where's that?
El Paso, Illinois.
Oh, you're living in Illinois.
Yeah.
So you're visiting out here?
I am.
Okay.
I actually was wanting to come out, so I left in May, was wanting to come out in June or July, and talked with Tara, and she said, hey, my husband has, does a meetup once a month, and, we would love it if you came out and shared. So that sort of gave me an inspiration, and then I got a hold of Bishop Earl and was able to record on his show, and so I'm just out visiting and really have a heart for Utah and the Mormons, and hopefully one day here in the next couple of years I'll be able to move out here.
And you like the mountains too.
And I love the mountains. I love going outside of the house in the morning and there being mountains there, because Illinois is really flat.
Wow.
We went back to Minnesota recently, and we left the Black Hills, and we were driving across South Dakota, and my wife said, where are the mountains? I said, they're behind us. Back that way.
And the Dakotas are one of the most boring states to drive through.
Yeah, they're wild. So where are you staying here?
I'm actually staying with the Savolkas.
Oh,
Yeah.
how about that?
So it's perfect.
Yes,
It's perfect.
Robin.
They've been
Yeah,
very
okay.
very good hostesses.
Very nice.
That's great.
My kids they're very excited to have somebody staying here. Well, especially Karis. Zoe I think Zoe's warmed up to you, but Karis is
Zoe
like,
takes
do you want to
one.
read a book with me? Do you want to look at pictures with me when I was free?
Can I play on your iPhone?
Yeah, it's just on your iPhone
He
now.
likes the iPhone.
Yeah.
All right, well, would you mind closing us in prayer?
Sure.
Should we clap first or after the prayer?
Yeah. Clap afterwards.
God, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for just this opportunity just to be able to come and just share about you, God. And I thank you that the Savolkas do this every month, God, and just bless them for that, God. And I just pray that you will just minister to the people that watch this, God, and just really speak to the LDS, God, and just allow them to see the truth, and that they're able to study out for themselves and not allow other people to tell them what to believe in, God. And I just I thank you for this group of people, and I thank you for giving me new friends, and God, I just thank you for who you are, God. And I just pray as we go our separate ways that you will bless us and send your angels to surround us. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.